It's Talking Town and it's live right now discussing yesterday's 0-0 draw away to Millwall. We've got our Town in 60, our likes and dislikes. I think the dislikes will probably outweigh the likes. And we've got some McKenna post-game thoughts, which we'll debate. It's Talking Town. It's live. Let's go. Hello again, friends, and you are my friends. When you're Talking Town, sorry, it's at a different time to how it normally is after a game the day before. But it's Christmas, and the diary and the schedule, they're all over the place. But we're live. I'm joined by two wonderful people, as you can see on the screen, ITFC Beard, and of course, the Oasis superfan, Lee Anderson, here to pick apart and debate and discuss exactly what we saw yesterday from, quite frankly, what was a terribly boring game from my perspective. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these two gentlemen bring to the table. And of course, we can't do these shows without you wonderful people at home. First of all, Merry Christmas. Hope you had a great one. But get active in our live chat box today. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, your talking points, and we'll bring them to the show and we'll debate them. We have a little bit of a running order here, but really, it's what you want to talk about. So bring it to the party. Skyline has always said, can we talk about what we should be? And can we stop, talking about what we should be and focus on the reality of what we are, and the season will be more enjoyable. We are over 50% of our signs are not what we thought in the system. It's either them or McKenna style, and it's still a mystery. Love that early comment. We'll debate that throughout the course of the show. And don't forget, if you like Town news, views, fan opinion, and match watch-alongs now as well, hit that subscribe button and join Talking Town. And we are brought to you with Match Bingo and Stowmarket Osteopaths. Right, we'll kick it off in our normal way with Town in 60 seconds. This is very easy. It's where we give our 60-second opening thoughts. It can be praises, it can be rants, it can be questions, it can be moans about the system, moans about a lack of striker, whatever you want it to be. It's your 60 seconds. It's live. It's right now. I'll start with you, Lee, as a bit more of a seasoned podcaster than ITFC Beard, but he is catching you up ever so quickly. And I appreciate your support yesterday, Beard, by the way, on the watch along. I really do. It was tremendously appreciative from my perspective. But Lee, you got 60 seconds. The floor is yours. The microphone is yours. Go for it, my man.
Right. Let me start with an amazing stat that I picked up off of the internet. The Ipswich have been held to a 0-0 draw away from home on Boxing Day only twice, and each time they've got promoted to the Premier League. There you go. What more can we say?
In the stars. It's in the stars.
So going back to the comment earlier, that I can't remember the guy's name, put on
Skyliner.
Yeah. It sort of relates into there. But right, quickly, game. Frantic start to the game. I mean, I know you called the game boring, but there was more action in the first 20 minutes than we sometimes see in an hour at Portman Road, where teams play a low block. So I think the game ebbed and flowed, I think, without the goals. A couple of great saves from Walton, first 10 minutes, keep us in it. And then we had the next 10 minutes, didn't quite fashion the same chances, half chances. Do we miss that striker? Is that, are we missing that the 1-0 winner, the one who gets the one goal, the fox in the box? Are we missing that person? I think we probably are. And then the game, second half, we came out. I think we controlled, for a team away from home, I think we controlled the game quite well, limited them to fewer chances second half for sure. And when we started to make the substitutions, it reminded me of a boxing match where you got them on the ropes. They started to tire, but we just couldn't find that knockout punch, and that was a bit disappointing for me. I'm 10 seconds. Crikey, I'm normally better than that.
Well, I gave you extra time, Lee, because you brought a stat to the party, and I thought
I've been rehearsing this for 5 minutes from when you messaged me at 10 o'clock this morning.
Joe, I gave you
Sorry.
extra time because anyone who brings stats to a party post-Christmas, anyone who has put the research in deserves that extra credit in the bank. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to let it roll. And I might do the same to Beard if he brings some stats to it as well. But no pressure.
Mate, I can get finished in 30 seconds.
You
make your own jokes.
I'm sure they will. Higgy says transition is far too slow, which allows the opposing defence to regain composure. And you mentioned it was more action than we get perhaps at Portman Road in the low block and the lack of striker. And that's going to come up, I think, not just in this show, but in future shows until Town address that, Lee. And we're going to come back to it and focus in on it. But we'll give Beard his 60 seconds before we do. Beard, you got 60 seconds. You say you only need 30. No pressure then, my man. Floor is yours.
Yeah, there was like I said in the live watch along, which you did fantastic with.
Thank you.
There was moments of display of vintage Town, like passing the fluidity and stuff like that, but then they adjusted. I think their ability to tactically adjust our style really shut us down, and our inability to adjust to theirs. I think once they come out the second half, boom, they shut us down, and I think it was there to display that we haven't got that clinical finish, create the chances, nothing finishing there.
Yeah. Oh, well, wow. You really did do it in 30 seconds. Wow. Tremendous work. And on the watch along, I really got the feeling rather, that the game was in 4 stages. Opening stage, Millwall were really on top. Then Town weathered and came back into it. Then the second half, we were quite dominant for a large period. But then Millwall towards the end of the game sort of came back into it as the home side and really took it to Town in those opening minutes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Town pretty much play like Muhammad Ali, with a bit of the rope-a-dope. We're happy to sit back under pressure and rely on our fitness levels on the second half and with our strength on the bench. And like I said, I think they just adjusted to us too well, and we didn't really do much to sort of like change up our system. And it's easy for them. They held down the left-hand side, which they knew where most of our aggressiveness comes from. Boom, easy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We got, and I agree with what Higgy says here in terms of the transition. I do think it's too slow. We're going to come to that, I'm sure, throughout the course of the game. We have also got your voice messages. I say voice messages, voice message. Appreciate the person who's left us one, and you can get active in our voice messages. I'm after your Coventry preview thoughts. We're doing a show tomorrow where we preview the Coventry game. I want to know what you think about it. Who should play? Who shouldn't play? What the starting 11 should be? All of that as we head into it. Voice message us at speakpipe.com/talking town. Burns is back, says Nick Muller. I'm sure it's going to come up in one of our likes and dislikes. Philip says, you seriously need to hope you don't get promoted this season. Well, first of all, Philip, that ain't ever going to happen, my man. I ain't ever going to hope this club don't get promoted. I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't care if we had, all respect to them, 11 Sunday morning players playing. If we manage to get promoted, you take it every day of the week, and you hope for a window like Sunderland, frankly, where you put it together and you produce something that can go into a season really special. British Boyo, if we had a decent striker this season, we could perhaps at least be second already, quite the margin. And Simon says, we are so predictable every week. Jaden and Jens are passengers unless McKenna goes. Oh, okay, sorry. Unless McKenna goes, nothing will change. I don't want promotion with our entire squad. We'll be found wanting long term. Lee, what do you say back to that? Simon says, unless McKenna goes, nothing will change. Beard's shaking his head, but I'm going to give it to you.
That's quite a statement. Just on the previous statement that came up about not wanting promotion, I'd be interested to know what fan or what club that person supports.
From memory, I think Plymouth. I might be wrong, but Plymouth. From memory, I think it's Plymouth.
Right. Okay. I thought it'd be a Norwich fan or something like that, perhaps. But
it could well be.
But the thing, nothing will change under McKenna. Well, I guess until you change your manager at any club, nothing will change.
That's true.
But are we heading? Yeah, good or bad. I mean to say that Cajuste and Jaden are passengers. I'm not so sure about that. Were they passengers yesterday? Is that what he's referring to? But is he our top goal scorer?
I believe it is. I believe he is. So
I'm not sure how a passenger.
Well, let me talk to you about Philogene, because I picked up on the Wednesday game a little bit, and I picked it up a lot yesterday when I was doing the watch along. That teams now tactically are swarming Jaden Philogene. The memo is out there. Jaden Philogene is a dangerous player. playing for Ipswich Town Football Club. You give him time, you give him space, and dangerous things will happen, and bad things, if you're the opposing team, will happen against you. So the game plan, the tactic, if you like, Lee, for me now for teams is to, the moment Jayden receives the ball, don't just have one man go towards him. You're looking at 2 or 3 players that are instructively told, swarm him, give him no time to give him space. Do you feel that's also tactically what you picked up from watching the games, and that's why he's perhaps, as someone would say, a passenger, which I didn't think he was, but that's why he's a bit more quieter?
Yeah, I think so. And it goes back to the other point made is by is it Higgsy about the transition.
Yeah,
we look great in transition when we get the ball forward quickly. In the first half of the game, when we play out from the back, it's all slow. We need to put the ball to move a little bit quicker, so the team doesn't get set. Then you're going to give your wingers more time on the ball. And the same happened with Egley in the last game at home. They both, again, that was another example of our wingers being absolutely smothered out of the game, particularly first half, where they couldn't get the ball. By the time we get the ball to him, if he's got his foot on the ball and they're snapping at your heels and you haven't got that half a second, then it's going to be really, really difficult. Once you give him the space, once they get the space, and I think that's where the transition needs to be quicker and such, like, or the game opens up second half when the other teams tire, you're going to get more time. You're going to get more time on the ball. You can't be a wizard. You can't be man marked that tightly where you can always beat the person from a tight piece of skill. You need to have space. Any player does.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to have that bit of space, and then from there, you're going to be able to influence the game more.
But equally, if that is the tactic, that should open up more space for other players within the 11 if you can find them and you can beat players swarming towards you. And you're right, me and Mike D, particularly on the Discord, we've talked about the transition for the last 18 months not being good enough, not being quick enough, and that is, I agree with you, one of the ways you can beat that is by, and you were sort of Millwall with their offside goal. I know it's from a set piece, but I've seen that story so many times where Town are the transition and the counter from our own set piece results in a situation where we concede or we come close to conceding. We nearly saw it again yesterday, but those type of things we're just not particularly quick enough at. And I saw one instance in the first half where Walton came and collected the ball, and then we had, I think it was McKenna sprinting away on the right-hand side. Got to be a bit more braver. Go for that throw, go for that kick, give him the ball, and see if you can get yourselves up the field in a transition or a numbers game where you're 3v2 or 4 versus 3 or whatever it might be. And Beard, Jens Karius, Shane says here, Jens doesn't do enough work in midfield. There's a couple of nice turns and runs, but nothing else. And I've waxed lyrical about Jens Karius. I love watching Jens Karius play when Jens Karius is really on it. The problem for me is we don't see enough of Jens Karius on it consistently for a long stretch of the game. He's 10, 15 minutes, like Wednesday at home particularly jumps out to me. He's on it for 10 to 15 minutes, and we score both times. When Jens Karius is on it, the run through, which results in the corner, 1-0. And then again in the second half, he's really on top of the game. Town score the second goal. We just don't see enough of it for me from Jens Karius.
Is that down to the lack of playing time, with he's favouring Jack Taylor at the moment, and, so he's not consistently on the pitch? Or is it the other teams are tactically aware to him, so they know how to shut him down, a bit like Jayden? If he's one of your strongest threats carrying the ball forward, which on his day he's one of the best in the league at it, in my opinion, him just getting through that middle, just being able to link up everything, I think amazing. But yeah, the inconsistency, I don't think that's a Jan's problem. I think it's a whole team problem at the moment. We have no consistent striker who's able to score, who's able to link up and bring other people in. I'd say there's maybe 2 or 3 players in the whole squad who I'd say are the most consistent, and one of them being Daryl Furlong. I think he's one of our most consistent performers, a solid 7 most games.
Yeah, just offers not a great deal going forward for me, Darnell Furlong. That's the only problem I've got with him. He's a very solid right back, 1v1, good defender, covers his centre half well. Just when it crosses the halfway line, a little bit limited in that respect. But Craig does say, I know a lot of our fans don't want to hear this, but this may well be the best defence we've had under McKenna. And I do a little bit agree with that. And this is normally where we would do our flashpoints in association with Match Bingo. Don't forget, we have partnered with Match Bingo to bring you a 100% deposit bonus when you use the word town, all in caps. The deposit minimum is £10, and while bonus cash can come withdrawn, the winnings absolutely can be. So get that 100% deposit bonus by using the word town, all in caps, and combining the excitement of live sport with the thrill of bingo. Terms and conditions apply. Please gamble responsibly. Visit BigGambleAway.org for more information. And to play Match Bingo, scan the QR code on the screen next to their logo, or link is in the description. So it's normally where we do the flashpoints, but I'm not going to do flashpoints this week because it's very difficult to do flashpoints from a 0-0 draw. So instead, I watched Kieran McKenna's post-game interview, and I've pulled out just a couple of things, and I want to bring it to you, and I want you just to tell me whether you agree or disagree, and if you agree or disagree, what you think about it and why you do one or the other. I'll start with you, Lee. I've got a comment here. It says, challenging first 10 minutes, but felt we got to grips with it. We've then controlled the first half and then dominated the second half. Agree, disagree? What's your thoughts on those comments?
Well, I think I touched on that in my opening 60 seconds. You know, it was a furious start to the game, and it was unlike the game that we had with them 2 years ago, where we actually came out and won quite comfortably, where we were under the cosh first 10 minutes. And I think we can expect that. But I think the positive on that for me was, so I agree with McKenna. It's not very often that I would disagree with him at all, because I think he's quite measured. I think he's pretty measured. Once we all settle down and we get our fan heads off, and if you sit down and reflect on what he said, he's not generally too far out with it, I don't think. But I think, the first 10 minutes previously, under previous games, we would have maybe conceded. But that I think that's a real positive. The fact that we didn't, we stood strong, we built the platform, we knew they were going to come at us. You know, we have to respect the opposition. They're going to do that. They loaded the box really well. You know, if they get the ball down the right-hand side, they're not looking to move the ball to the left-hand side. All the people on the left-hand side flood the box. They've got 5 or 6 in the box every time, and they work it in a triangle to get the ball in, whether it's at the byline, on the 45, or straight. All they're interested in is banging that ball into the box. And that's what they did. And we weathered that pretty well. You know, yes, they got a couple of headers off, and it was a great save from Walton, where he got it with his other hand coming across him. That was a really, really good save, a really, key moment. But we've weathered that, and then we've come into the game.
I do agree. I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? I think you were on the show with us in terms of, I think it was after the Leicester game, where we were talking about game management and having to manage situations of a game better. And that's something that Town perhaps haven't done throughout the course of this season and other seasons particularly well. But I thought yesterday, I think you're absolutely spot on. We weathered the storm. We stood firm. We didn't concede that many opportunities. I know Walton made a good save. Live viewing, I thought it was a world-class save. Second viewing, it's a good save, comfortable save from a goalkeeper who should be making those saves, and he did. But we stood strong, and actually what I called for yesterday and what they did was put the foot on the ball, slow it back down, get touches into the team, and they did that. And they really managed that first portion of the game really well. Because you expect, don't you, Lee, the home side on Boxing Day to come out of the traps, flying, looking to take the game to you and see if they can get something early. But we managed it and we weathered it, and I completely agree with you there. But what I also think is we need to move the ball quicker and do more when we are in control of the moments of the game, like the second portion of the first half, where he says, we took control of that first half. We did, but did we do enough, Lee, to question Millwall, to put the question to Millwall, can you contend with what we can do?
Yeah, we had those couple of sort of half chances. We had those sort of couple of half chances, didn't we? Azon had one that bounced off that I think was goal bound, that bounced off around the box. We had a couple of moments in there, but nothing that you would say was, we should have scored. Nothing really clear cut. And I think that's one of the frustrations. You'll probably come on to that in a bit with some of McKenna's thoughts about where we were up the pitch. So yeah, but I think, it goes back to your point about taking the sting out of the game, doesn't it? About, yes, we want to move the ball quickly, but we want to keep control of it. If we've got the ball, we'll let them bluster out. They had their 10 minutes. They're like the underdog in a boxing match. They've come out swinging first couple of rounds, and then they've started to tire, and then that's when you can put your foot on the ball and move it a bit. But you've got to move it about. You've got to move it about with purpose. It's got to be still purpose, even if you're going to move the ball around the back 4. stop dithering with it and just keep it moving, because you're given if you slow it down, you're giving them time to think and reset. What you want to do is just keep moving it, and move it a little bit quicker, even if it doesn't go forward. Just keep those passes moving a little bit quicker. And then again, we're a little bit sloppy, weren't we? Trying to go forward with the ball, gave the ball away a couple of times.
First touch was terrible. I thought first touch yesterday particularly was awful.
Yeah, but it makes it a good watch in some respects, because the game was quite interesting. The game was quite interesting. I thought the game was really interesting.
I understand that Leif Davis when he just kicked it out of play just for no reason.
Half.
That was horrendous.
Yeah.
I haven't seen my reaction back to that, but I don't know if it was particularly great.
It was brilliant.
It got me well off guard. I was like, what on earth are you doing? Beard, I've got something for you. McKenna got into some really good positions, but just not clinical enough. And I want to talk about this not clinical enough and the striker situation, because it feels like we've not managed this particular department position well for a few transfers now. We've got, back before Kiefer Moore came in, we were having 0-0 away draws. I think it was at Stoke, where we couldn't score goals, or we couldn't find a striker who was fit enough to play up front. Then we start the Premier League campaign with not particularly great options. I know Delap becomes Liam Delap through the course of that season, but you start the year with, I think it was Ali Al-Hamadi being your second choice off the bench due to an injury. And then, of course, this season, you look at the options you've got. You haven't replaced Delap. You haven't done that in any way, shape or form. You've gone with George Hurst and Ivan Azon, who is a developing player, a player who I think has got so much potential, but with an expectation of promotion. That expectation comes pressure, and pressure isn't necessarily great for development of players. But I think he's doing okay, just not what perhaps we need at this moment in time. But we're not clinical enough, and that is a department we've not, for me, managed well enough over the last 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This is a story as old as time for Ipswich in recent years. Like, we've recruited amazingly in so many different, positions, and it just seems, since McKenna ins, we've struggled to get that striker. I even distinctly remember when Delap came in, he still wasn't a prolific goal scorer. He just kind of, like you said, grew into that and become a good scorer. You could argue that he doesn't expect his strikers to necessarily be the scorers that much, but they're the link-up play. But you still need those people to score, a good 10 goals. And I don't see either one of our strikers this season getting 10 goals. And that's going to be our detriment to our season, I think. It's all well and good saying, we're creating this and we're creating that, but without that finishing touch, it's all for nothing. And what is the point of, getting it? Like, everyone lambasts Casey McAteer and stuff like that, but he put a peach of a cross in straight to Azon, and it was nowhere near even hitting the target. So, Azon kind of gets a bypass. We got, he's young, he gets around on the pitch and stuff like that. And, Casey McAteer, had he got that goal, would set that goal up, it would all have been praise on Azon. He's fine, getting the goal. But McAteer, I don't think is hopeless. I just think we're expecting a different player out of him. He wasn't a prolific scorer, but he is crossing balls into no finish. There's nothing no one's capitalizing what he can do.
I would say it was a slight awkward height for Azon. It came to him just a little bit too high for the volley, but not obviously high enough for a header. It sort of just hit him as well. But you're right. Good position, a fairly decent ball from McAteer. But what I liked from Azon there was he got across the first man. Too many times I find our centre forwards do not get across the first man. And I would challenge you a little bit. You say the centre forward in the McKenna system isn't the one that gets the goals. And I would agree. In past seasons, that is absolutely the case. But I also want to bring to you, have we seen a slight evolution from the McKenna tactic? And now actually our style of play is get the ball to wingers, and whether they're going to be 1v1 and they can make something happen, or we're looking to put that ball in the box at a more consistent rate. And actually, now what we're looking at is balls into the box, be that McAteer or Egley who put a couple of crosses in, or Jaden or Leaf, but no centre forward that wants to either get across the first man or show to feet when he's got back to goal, or spin and go in behind. There's just no movement from whoever plays up front for me.
I think one of the biggest evolutions is probably in having Nunes play behind the striker. I think that's caused the biggest difference. Like before that, you would have someone like a Chaplin in who would capitalise on the knockdown and then get the goals in. With Sammy Smodek's obviously not doing his prolifically best this season as well. I think that is forced the evolution more than anything else, So we've always had wing players who have done really well. Obviously, Jaden's having his breakout season, so that's changing that. I think he's adapting in terms of he's allowing the players who are doing well to do well. But yeah, I think I stand by what I say. I think previously he has relied on his strikers to be big burly men to knock the ball down to them diminutive players just to get the goals, coming in late into the goal. But they would still get 10 goals a season by having the crosses coming in, easy headers and stuff like that. I would never thought I said this, but I would have loved to have Kiefer Moore this year, based on from what we've got. We've got players crossing the ball in, someone tall just to head it in who can actually score a goal.
Yeah,
and we haven't got that at the moment up front.
Higgy54 says Azon and McAteer are hopeless. They've achieved or supplied nothing, and the season is halfway through. That's what Higgy54 believes. And I want to sort of go to the other end of the pitch now, Lee, with McKenna's comments. Clean sheet away from home at a tough place is a positive. Can't argue with it. I don't think you're going to disagree with it, but it is a real positive to finally see, as Craig said earlier in our chat, probably the best defence we've had under McKenna.
Well, they seem to have found their feet. We seem to have that's not our soft underbelly anymore, is it?
No.
And there's two things that they're learning, and I think I know Beard is waxing lyrical about Furlong. Not quite so sure myself. He's a solid championship defender, and he has added some steel perhaps to that right hand side, and maybe he's not quite as adventurous as Leif Davis down the left. Well, he's not as adventurous, but he is learning that role and getting forward a bit more. So I see that, but I think we're just a little bit more solid and together as a unit. And I think as the season's gone on, and I know McKenna talks about it all the time, but the season starts on the first day. You can't say, we're doing all right since September. The season does start on the first day, but there are improvements. Even if you look how dreadful we were against Leicester, 2 of those goals were, we've conceded 2 goals that were absolutely, you can't really stop them really. There were 2 worldies. The third goal was Leaf again, but I think we are more solid defensively, and that did show yesterday. And the frustration is that you've built that platform to go on and win the game. And how that game panned out, apart from us scoring a goal, that would have been how McKenna would have set out the way the game was going to pan out. And I think the players as a team are now starting to see that a little bit more. They understand now that because a lot of them are new, and we're seeing what we had in League One and the Championship, in that we can stay in games a lot longer. Eventually, our forward players are going to get us that goal. Didn't happen yesterday, but the foundations are built on a clean sheet. Had we conceded yesterday, the game looks very, very different. But we didn't. But I guess that's the frustration.
Yeah. How much of that do you associate down to our new defensive midfield player, who I can't speak highly enough of? He's phenomenal. But how much of that of that new best defensive had on McKenna, as Craig said earlier, or that new foundation, that new solidness about us, down to Azor Matasiwa? Because when you watch him play, Lee, and I want to know if you agree with this, his positioning is just 10 out of 10. And the amount of balls either in the air or on the floor that he cuts out from ever reaching your 2 centre halves, I just can't speak highly enough about that player. I love watching him play.
Yeah, I've said on here, I don't think I've ever said a bad word about him on here. He is I think in terms of that part of his game, he's a step up from what we had with Morsey.
Agreed.
Without that, it's just there to see. There are other elements of his game where Morsey was a little bit more influential, but his first job, I guess, is to break that play up, give it to somebody else. And I think, he's, apart from the first game and the first game against Birmingham, I mean, that was a baptism of fire, and he could have easily just melted away from that, during that game, because of their first game of the season, his first start. The team are all sort of new, and that he's just moved on, and he's not getting caught. He's given the ball away the odd time, don't get me wrong, but he's not getting caught. He's not getting picked himself, which Morsey never did. Morsey hardly ever. He had his elbows out and always seemed to be able to drift away from the person coming in to him and never really got picked. He never got pickpocketed with the ball. Matasiwa's a couple of times, but he's just getting better and better all the time. And then you could point to the fact that we've got a solid two at the back now, and we're not rotating the back two. You can point to that. You might not. Greaves might come in next week, and you might have the same. But there just seems to be a better understanding, and I think particularly with Leif Davis bombing forward a lot of the time, Matasiwa knows how to cover that. And there's times where you see him almost at the centre back when in transition. But yeah, I've not seen anyone in the league better than him at that.
I agree, and obviously Kipra's come in now and sort of made that shirt his own, that position his own. That does come to me, Beard, and I'm going to ask you another question after this, but it does come to me a little bit with a tinge of disappointment that obviously a player we spent a fairly decent amount of money on for Ipswich Town standards in Jacob Greaves hasn't been that player that is sort of nailed down that position and made that his own and made him undroppable. That does come a little disappointment. Don't get me wrong. I love Kipra. I love that he's playing at a high level. But equally, the other side of it is that, the recruitment for Jacob Greaves, he needs to make that his own position. But that's, whenever he's picked again or not, but he hasn't done so yet.
Yeah, I think the price tag maybe put a big expectation on it, and then he had to come into a promotion team, and he wasn't. It was a lot for him to adapt to a different level, and then maybe his confidence has got knocked a little.
But Beard, his best performances in a Town shirt have been at left back.
Yeah, well, maybe that's who knows. Maybe there is still a Rolls Royce of a player in there, in my opinion.
Agreed. I agree. Yeah.
I think there is a player there, whether it be a left back or centre back. He's still young. He's still got plenty of time to develop into the player that we think he's going to be. It's whether he gets the chance. It's that. And just to comment on what Lee said about Furlong, I think we don't need Furlong to be creative up top. We need him to be a supporting player in defence, which has allowed us to be as solid as we have. He is a very good tracker back. He's good at tackling. I think that's where his strongest asset is. Now, if we had a stronger right wing, Egley's getting there. He's still got his time. I think that's the perfect scenario, right? Because you've got the left, who is as strong as they come in this league. And then if we can get that right, as solid with the link up, with that, knowing that Furlong is at the back protecting, I think we'll be sorted.
I agree there. I just would like to sort of take the best attributes of Harry Clark, which is his ability on the overlap and getting the ball into the box for me, and combine that with the best ability of Darnell Furlong, which is 1v1 defending, really solid, composed, really strong in everything he does defensively. If you had that, you'd have a really decent, for me, right back at this level that would be able to offer you a bit of both. You don't need to be Leif Davis 2.0, but you do need to have that threat of the overlap, because it really helps players like Sindravali Egley, Casey McAteer, when you've got a fullback coming on the overlap, that you've got to, as a fullback, you've got to think about, okay, am I going to go with that run or stay with the ball player? And that indecision can sometimes create space and time and opportunity for those players that you've paid money for, whether you want to bring the fee into it or not, but you've paid money for to go and do the damage. But Beard, I want to talk to you about Matasiwa, not him directly, but that position, because you've got your problem solver in Azor Matasiwa, right? That's solid. The vision, I think, was obviously to have Nunez next to him as a ball player that's got the vision to play any pass in his locker and can pick a pass, spot a pass, play a pass, and then have pace on the transition or pace up front with Egley, McAteer, etc. That hasn't quite worked out because Nunez has had to play a 10 and made that position his own. So in January, you are Mark Ashton, you are Kieran McKenna. What are you looking to do? Because I think you need more production from a player next to Matasiwa. Taylor is great for energy. Jens Kajus can really show how good he is, but at times isn't in the game. So do you go and get such a midfield player to go alongside Matasiwa to bring something in that position? Or do you say, do you know what, Nunez back to the midfield we thought it was going to be, and we bring a 10 into the club, whether that's Connor Chaplin back or whether you go and get somebody else? Which position are you looking to, if you had to, prioritise?
I would actually go for 2 central midfielders, a backup for Matasiwa.
Agreed.
Inevitably, he's going to be banned, so we're going to need to have a solid replacement for him. And then, it depends, right? If we somehow secure an attacking midfielder who is a marquee name, who is amazing, who we like, that's it, then we can bring Nunes back, and that's a brilliant problem to have. But if we're going to keep Nunes up top, then we need a solid, dependable, proven, and I think that's the key word, proven central midfielder who can perform at this level. We've thrown a lot of money and a lot of sort of like thingy into inexperienced players and hoping they come good.
Yeah,
and I think that's what we need to do.
Agree. And it's really frustrating as a Town fans because what they also saw the vision to be with Hayden Hackney, and you can't help but really get a tinge of disappointment every time you watch Matasiwa play, because you think if you could put Matasiwa next to Hayden Hackney, you have got a really solid quality midfield where you've got a player in Matasiwa who is a problem solver and protects your back too, but then you've got a Hayden Hackney who's got the ball carrying ability and the ability we've all seen from him going forward. The two together, or the two as part of a 3 with the 10, or whatever way you wanted to do it, would have been so exciting. So you've got that to contend with. But he's not going to come. Middlesbrough second. You wouldn't have thought he's going to want to come to Town now. But you need those sort of players, don't you, Beard? Because at the moment you've got Jack Taylor, who's got a lot of energy, great, but not really a thread the needle kind of midfield player who's going to spot a pass and play a pass. And then you've got your 10, which is Nunez, who finds pockets of space, and I love that. But equally, he's not got the world's amount of, the highest amount of pace in the world. So you're not really threatening him behind or any of those sorts of things from a 10. It's trying to find the right balance, though, isn't it?
Yeah, like I feel kind of like bad because from what I've seen and by all accounts, we assumed we had it over the line, like we had everything there. So I guess that they kind of didn't put too many eggs in the basket of getting someone else. I think that they had that done, and they're like, okay, we're sorted. But yeah, I just really hope this January we put the money in the correct places. A decent striker who's scored consistently at this level or a similar level, who will lead us into the Premier League and be able to be a stay in the Premier League, and a solid midfielder at the very least, 2 ideally in the central midfield. That's my wish list. That's 3 players. I think this will be our season. We'll get second if we get the right players.
Yeah. Simon says, may as well bring back Donatian, as Furlong is no better going forward. Trevor says, what Kipre also has is a threat from corners. Completely agree. And also had a shot on the edge of the 18-yard box, which looked like it could be nestling in the back of the net. But obviously the Millwall player got in front of it. Shane says, O'Shea yesterday stands with the ball way too long. Kipre was moving forward with it and trying to draw their defence out. I do think at times with O'Shea doing that, it is a tactical foot on the ball, sting out of the game, slow Millwall down, take the steam and the pressure away, get ourselves back. And that's what I was calling for at certain times of the game. You've got to do that at times. Just put your foot on the ball, slow it down, and just take that sting out of the game. And Lee, it's not in our sort of show notes. It's not something that we thought we might touch upon today, but sort of Beard's gone with a wish list there for January. So before we go to our likes and dislikes from yesterday, do you agree with Beard's wish list? Have you got anything to add to the wish list? Now, obviously, Father Christmas has been and gone, so you can't be asking for a centre forward under the Christmas tree, but you could be hoping for a New Year's resolution that we finally do bring that striker in, or we do get sort the 10 position out, whatever it might be. What's your wish list? Are you adding to it? Are you changing it from Beard's? What's your thoughts on that one?
I think the 2 forward positions that he's highlighted, the centre midfield player, obviously Hackney. I think even if we'd have signed Hackney, I think we'd have still got new. I think the players that we've got in would have still come in, and that would have meant that Humphreys would have gone out on loan. So I still think that we'd have had the other 4 and Hackney, myself. That's what I think.
Do you think they would have still gone for Jens Kajust?
Oh, absolutely.
Or do you think Jens
that deal's been going on all summer? We're talking about the squad. We can afford it. By all accounts, I think we'd have had. Yeah, I think we'd have had all. I think we'd have had all 5, and it wouldn't surprise if Middlesbrough were mid-table, struggling. I could have seen us going back in for Hackney. He won't come now, I doubt, because of where they are. But if they'd have been mid-table, we would have gone back in for him. I'm sure of it, because that's who we wanted. But yeah, I think we'd have had all of them. I really do, because you need that. So you need that big squad, and that ambition is still going to be there. We're going to go into the transfer window in January. Very difficult, isn't it? Because we're going to be looking for another midfielder. I really do believe that we are, particularly more so that Nunes is seems to be first choice at the moment for the number 10 role. And I think McKenna knew that. I mean, we don't buy Nunes and McKenna's gone, oh, crikey, he can now play in that position. I think because it hasn't worked for the other two number 10s quite as well as expected, that Nunes has got that chance. But what it does leave you light again in midfield for another midfielder. And I think that will happen. What type of midfielder that is, whether it's someone young, hungry, with potential, or whether it's someone who knows the Championship. If it's someone who knows the Championship, I guess it will be on loan, because what you've got to think about is if you're going to buy someone and give someone a 3 or 4 year contract, you're not going to do it if they're only a Championship standard player. You're going to spend that money on someone that's going to be able to do it, you believe is going to be able to do it in the Premier League. So you get someone on loan. If you then go up, then looking at our model that we did in the Premier League last time, we struggled a little bit with. We brought the young, hungry players in. Maybe then you're going to spend the money on an established Premier League player that will give you more. So I think that's the dilemma. So you can normally tell by if it's a loan or if it's somebody that's going to come in. And the same with the striker. The same will happen with the striker. If the striker is there who we feel is going to be better than what we've got and is going to do us a job in the Premier League whenever we get there next, because that's the ambition. So you're not going to buy a season Championship striker. You're going to buy, unless that striker is someone that you believe is going to give you the goals in the Premier League. If not, then you might as well just take someone on loan and get you over the line. And I think that's the dilemma.
Ivanovic from yesterday, Millwall. I really like that player up front for them. I think he's a good striker. Lots of room to develop. Is that? I know Beard just shook his head. He's clearly not somebody who's bought on that hype, if you like. But is that a player you'd be looking at, Lee?
I suppose that type of striker that can play that. I've not seen enough of him to say, yeah. But we need to look. You want someone of the quality proven a bit more with the striker that's up the road. I'm not saying we're going to go get him.
That would be good.
But you need that ilk of a player, someone that's going to drive you in the Championship, but also looks like they could be useful in the, get you 10, 15 goals in the Premier League. Yeah. That where that striker is in the Championship or abroad, I don't know. But the club will not go. I'm sure will not go and spend serious money on a player just to get us out of the Championship. And that's the dilemma. We've got to look at the long term. But because you've then got to sell him on again. What happens if he's no good for the Premier League? You've got to buy someone that's going to last the course. You're going to get promoted to the Premier. You're going to get promoted to the Premier League.
You've got to look at the rewards of getting to the Premier League, right? We're not going to get to the Premier League with the current. They brought Akpon in thinking he's going to get 30 odd goals, get him on loan, and then we're going to what's it called? Is signing when we get promoted, right? And we're going to be in the exact same boat. We're going to get someone who we think is going to get us the goals. And what incentive has a loanee player got to outperform and do really well if he knows he's not going to be used in the Premier League for us? So I think
it's putting on.
I could disagree with that, because you've only got to look what happened last time in the Premier League. Who do we get in on loan when Hurst gets injured? And he had a great, and he was only Kiefer Moore, and he was only on loan. What did he have to prove?
That's slightly different, right? Because he had a point to prove with us. He was previously with us, and you know, unless you can find a player with that kind of like storied background and you just have to look at his personality trait. Kiefer Moore wants to perform. He is that kind of player. He is at the ascendancy of his career and he wants to score them goals. He wants to prove that he's still got it and he's doing well. But I think we need a consistent, like we got Sammy Smodics, we got Akpom. They've got one brilliant season each, right? And that's their outstanding seasons. But they're proving that they're struggling now. And if we're getting another player in loan, that's how many players have we got in loan now? And then it's just like they're going to go. We need the consistency, and I think we go out and we either get an outstanding striker from the Premier League who's not getting playing time, and we're like, okay, come and do us a job like Brandon Johnson. I think that's rumoured. I think a player like him could do well for us on loan, and then we throw eggs and look at actually spending our money to get the right player, because Hurst is great. I love him. He's done good things for us, but he is not our answer. He's proven he's not our answer of goals. He's not going to get us 10 goals this season. Azon is a developing player. I don't think he'll ever get us 10 goals if we sign him.
I think whichever direction you go, you have to look at a player whose floor is top 6 of the Championship, but his ceiling is Premier League, whether that's mid-table down. That's the sort of player you're looking for. The thing with George Hurst is I think we've sort of reached his ceiling. Like, this is where he's going to be for the majority of his career. I just don't see him developing into a Premier League centre forward. I feel it'll be a Championship centre forward, a very good one, but a Premier League one, I just don't quite see that. Azon, very early in his development. There's flashes, but nothing you could really say would be a Premier League standard at this point, but he could develop. But you're looking at a player like Kiefer Moore, for example. He came to us on loan, but he's played in the Premier League. He's played in that mid-table down for a number of years, being a very high-quality Championship striker and still doing it at Wrexham. So it's difficult because in January, it's very hard to go and buy a player whose floor and ceiling are exactly where you want them to be. But a loan, whether that's a domestic loan or an international loan, that well could be the answer. But as Beard says, we have got a number of loans already. So perhaps you'll see some players returning. I don't know. It's a conversation to explore in more detail as January springs around. Now, obviously, we love hearing from you here at Talking Town. We're at a live chat or clicking the link. Nobody today has felt brave enough or has got an opinion strong enough to click the link, and that's absolutely fine. But if you change your mind, the link is always there for you to come on and have your say. But we also have our speakpipe.com/talkingtown, our voice messages, where we love hearing from you. I've got one to play in just a second, but I'm after Coventry thoughts now. So head there after the show and leave your Coventry thoughts, your predictions, your score predictions, your team predictions, who should play, who shouldn't play, and why they should or why they shouldn't play. But we're just going to go to our likes and dislikes. But before we do, let's play this one voice message we've received this week from the legend that is Bjorn. Merry Christmas, Bjorn, and a Happy New Year. But here it is.
Morning, Garb. Morning, Talking Town boys. Merry Christmas. Hope everyone had a good one. Garb, was nice to see you briefly after the Wednesday game and say Happy Christmas and all that. Boxing Day. Millwall. Realistically, any of us not taking a point as a team that's been above us the entirety of the half of the season we've had so far, apart from the last couple of weeks, I'd have taken a point out of that. But as we all know, being there, seeing it week in, week out, if any game cried out for us to have a striker, it was that game. Should have been blitzed in that second half. Absolutely blitzed. They had nothing at all for about, 80% of the second half. We should have scored 2 or 3. But that non-striker thing is going to hold us back and hold us back again. I only see 2 options now. They have to have something in the pipeline for January. They have to have something in the pipeline. Or they have to just put Akpom as the 9 and just leave him in there and see what happens. Because I think with a 4-game run of being that man for 90 minutes in the striking spot, I think it'll be all right. A point away, tough place. It is what it is. But the only shine light, Burnsy's coming back on. Burnsy comes back on. If he comes back fully fit, that place is between him and Egley for me. And he showed one little burst of speed, which we've missed, that sort of directness you get from Wes. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's between him and Egley on that right for me. Have a good rest of your Christmas weekend and everything. And up a town. And up a Talker Town, obviously.
Thank you very much, Bjorn. Lovely to meet you at the statue as well, and appreciate the voice message. I'm going to split what Bjorn's just said into 2. I'm going to give you Wes Burns, Lee Anderson. I want you to tell me about his return and how excited that has gotten you, or maybe not gotten you. But Beard, I'm going to bring to you the Akpom point that Bjorn made. Bjorn wants to see Akpom played for at least 4 games up front as the centre forward to see what we've got. Do you agree, disagree? And if you do, why do you do it?
I think you've got nothing to lose at this stage, really. None of the strikers are scoring anyway, so why not put Akpom up there and see if he's scoring? He's given everyone else game time in that position. Akpom has scored previously. He's a solid player. why not? What have we got to lose?
Yeah, so you've got Coventry, Oxford, Portsmouth all coming up. There's 3 games there. You could give him the run of those 3 games of just starting centre forward. So I always think it's very difficult, Beard, when you say, right, we're going to give Akpom a go up front. You're playing for 60 minutes in one game. You don't necessarily get the production you wanted. And then you go, well, that didn't work. Because you can't really judge a player on 160, 65 minutes and say whether it worked or didn't work. Same for Azon, really.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least with like Azon and stuff like that, you can see he is getting at least a bit of consistent time, right? It's always been that and that. And I think, like I said, we got them in for a reason. We say in McKenna we trust, and we trust the recruitment process, and and stuff like that. So I think
I don't trust
McKenna's he covets versatility, so he must have known that Akpom can play that striking position. So let him do it, and let's see what happens. Like I say, we can't do any worse than we are already doing in the striking position.
Yeah.
So at the very least, that's another solid lump, and I think he's a big, tall guy. Maybe some of them set pieces can start being knocked in the right position.
Yeah, and at the very least, you then know what you've kind of got from Akpom, whether that's in the 10 or up front, and then you can obviously, if you're a recruitment team, perhaps have that conversation. Is this a loan that we need to rework, or is it a player that obviously we can carry forward and go forward with? You've got to have some answers at this point. You've got more questions. I said yesterday, you've got more questions than you've got answers. We need to start getting answers on players and positions, because it isn't early doors of the season now, and just not for this term either. Longer term,
he must be frustrated in himself as well, because he's not really getting the chance.
No, he hasn't. And somebody said yesterday, there's no service necessary to the centre forwards either. So it's really difficult for those forward line players. But as a football club, you've got to start getting answers and not questions. If it's not this season, for future seasons. Is this a player you want to go forward with, not just this season, but longer term? Is it not? You need answers, Lee. And obviously an answer to potentially a prayer for many of those that are praying for an impact from our right wing is Wesley Burns on the way back. Got game time yesterday, albeit only a few minutes. But come on, talk to me about Wes Burns' return. You've got to be excited for this. You've got to be pumped for it, haven't you?
Just before that, just on Akpom, I think the Coventry game is an ideal game for him, because we're going to have to soak up a bit of pressure. And I think if we can get the ball in behind their centre-backs, because Hurst has run them ragged when the ball's been played in behind. And I think with Hurst injured, that's an opportunity for Akpom to do that a little bit better. He looks a little bit better in behind than Azon. So I would say Akpom to start against Coventry. As for Wes Burns, what a delight to see him back. I mean, there can't be a Town fan in the country ever that wouldn't be pleased to see him come back after such a serious injury. And what a player he's been for us over the time. So that'll be interesting to see what happens to him moving forward now, whether or not he stays in the club or he goes out on loan. Because we don't know what's going to happen in the transfer window. He might go out on loan if he's not going to be used a lot. I understand he's out of contract at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my theory on this, now some might like this, some are going to be against this, but I can see if we're still in the Championship next season, I can see Burns getting a 2-year deal, something like that, because he's 31. If we get promoted to the Premier League, Wes Burns will go on a free transfer.
I agree. I do agree with that.
I generally believe that. He did okay in the Premier League. I think he'd want to go out and play football. McKenna's not going to be able to promise him the game time if that happens. He got a serious injury whilst in the Premier League, playing right to the limit of his physicality, and he gets injured. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence, because Wes Burns has not really been injured, and with his physicality, he's he can hold his own in the Championship. He better than most fullbacks, but I think the physicality got with him in the end, and that's what led partly to his injury. And you can see that with a lot of the players that we bought from the league, came through League One into the Premier League. They struggled with the physicality of that, and that's something that the club would address. But great to see him back. I would like to see him stay for the rest of the season and be part of a promotion push. It would be great for him, and then I would be surprised if we see him next season.
I disagree with it. It's not an injury. I think it was an unfortunate situation that can happen at any time in any division. But I hear what you're saying. I love that Wes Burns is back, but what I don't love is the feeling of euphoria that I've got because he's back, because what it means is the two right wingers I've currently got haven't really produced anything that would say, you don't quite need to rush Wes Burns back, or don't quite need Wes Burns back, because you've got two players that are scoring goals, making assists, looking dangerous. Where are you going to play him? Let's put him out on loan. But it's not like that. I think he will be part of the squad, Lee, because Beard, the two right wingers you've got at the moment, Egley's shown flashes, and he's a young player, and there's a lot of development there for him. But in terms of on-the-job production, right here, right now, we've not had a great deal from either. So you're definitely like, Wes is back, excellent.
I think Wes adds a completely different element to our game as well. He can run direct, and we've seen he's got a wicked shot on him when he wants to. He can get in that box. He's almost like Philogene in that aspect where, you give him that little bit of space, and he's going to add that little extra. Is he going to be, a bit tentative with his, speed now? Like Lee said, he is 31. And regardless of what happens, I hope we get a decent. If he goes the end of this season, I hope he gets the send off that he deserves.
Agreed.
Because that guy is a legend in my opinion. The way he's helped us, and he's got very unlucky with the injuries. He couldn't have just got small injuries. No, he got bad injuries, such bad injuries, and it was a shame. Because we could have done with him, because I think having his experience around people like Egley, to Tame off and stuff like that, Egley could learn so much from him. So,
yeah, but you shouldn't be as euphoric about a player returning from injury when you spent what is 30 million?
I think
on that
euphoric.
position?
You can be euphoric in terms of you're happy for the guy to come back.
Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy for him coming back, but I mean
euphoric in the sense of euphoric. You depend on him as much as we're going to need to. I think, I'm euphoric for him to finally get on that pitch.
Agreed.
But I'm
agreed.
disappointed that we need him to sort of like be up to speed quicker than he probably would have liked, or we
that's what I mean.
would have given him. But yeah,
it's disappointing, isn't it, that you've spent that amount of, and I know you always say it isn't about the fee, don't look at the fee, but as a football club, when you've addressed that position with what you need more from there. You need more.
I think the fee does play a massive part, but I think it is like an anchor around a lot of players' heads, because you're expected to perform to that kind of fee, and some players can rise to it, and some players immediately justify it, some players not so much, and then that they're kind of like burdened with it.
Yeah, agree. All right, let's do some likes and dislikes to round off the show. What we liked and didn't like from yesterday. Don't forget we are partnered with Stowmarket Osteopaths, quality care in Stowmarket since 1985. I'm very close to this microphone, apologies. 1985. Give Freddie a call on 01449 613 633. That's 01449 613 633. Stowmarket Osteopaths. Right, what do we like and didn't like from yesterday? Lee, any likes or dislikes we haven't quite covered in the show from yesterday?
No, I think we covered them around, being stronger at the back and weathering that storm. The dislike we haven't really, I suppose we have in the round, I guess, but just that final sort of third. I think when we opened them up second half, we just didn't get that real clear opportunity. Egley had that one where he cut inside, and that was a bit unfortunate. In actual fact, that took a deflection, should have been a corner. But that's just, I think, pushed that past the post, because that looked destined to go in. I think he caught the goalkeeper out near post there. And I think that's another positive, because he's looking to come in on the left side. Furlong's starting to look a bit better to go down the outside, because you want your full back to be right-sided, because he can overlap and cross the ball in. But it seems that you want your wingers to come on the inside. And that's where I think that's where Burns is different to Egley. Burns will give you that option down the outside, and is much more like McAteer. They're very similar. They're very similar in trying to go down the outside. Not good, not as great coming in on the inside on that. So that was I guess the last bit for me on a like or a dislike.
Yeah, so I don't like or dislike it. I love that Wes Burns is back. It's such an exciting thing, and great for him. Great for Wes Burns, the man. But as a football fan, can't wait to see him back in that position and hopefully contributing as the way Wes has. I don't like or dislike it. I love it. Beer, I've got one for you. I like and dislike. So it's a combined. I like Dara O'Shea as a defender. I dislike the 2 or 3 passes a game we seem to have from Dara where you scratch your head and you go, I don't even know what he saw there because there's not a Town player in the vicinity of where he was trying to play the pass.
Yeah, I think his concentration can get the better of him sometimes. He's probably a bit like you say, you like to see him sort of like slow down the game and stuff like that. Maybe his brain is moving a bit faster than his body sometimes. But
he almost lulls himself into sleep and then he passes the ball just randomly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's mine. Any from you?
Okay, so my like was the Talking Town watch along. I think it was good. It was brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you.
It was good banter. It was good to see your reactions, even if they were delayed.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much.
But for the game, likes, obviously, anyone would be crazy not to say Wes Burns getting on the pitch. I think, it's just brilliant. Dislikes, our sloppy passing and our tactically inability to adjust, I think, is my major dislike. But that's a season-long dislike for me.
I dislike players that on their heels or lack of movement when the ball's in a dangerous crossing position. I find too often our attacking players appear to be on their heels or playing statues when we need to have movement ahead of the ball player, particularly from crosses. But even centrally, like there's times where Nunez picks up pockets of space on the right, gets the ball to feet, and then you look ahead of him, and yes, okay, you've got numbers in attacking positions, but they're statues. They're just numbers in the attacking position. They're not actually, like centre forward, for example. I really dislike how no centre forward we seem to have wants to either come to feet for the ball or spin in behind and be a threat in behind the back line of the Millwall defence. I just felt it was very. If you're a centre half of Millwall yesterday, it was very easy because no one wanted to go to feet, so you weren't being dragged out of position. But equally, they weren't quite prepared to spin in behind you and threaten in behind you. So it was all in front of you and very easy. That's a dislike from me. Are there any others before we close up? We are live again tomorrow for our Coventry preview, so do join me, Matt, and Steve then. And we've got the live watch along Coventry part. We've got a second watch along. It's going to come. It's happening. Coventry. We're going to do a watch along and a match reaction. But any others, Lee? Any other likes or dislikes on anything? Adi says I like the pies and Burns' return. Aid Cooper dislikes walking football and more walking football. Simon Harris likes the that the lino raised his flag for an offside goal. Was it offside, Lee, for you? Because I
was bloody close.
I've not quite seen it back, but live viewing, watching it from here, I didn't think he was offside.
Matasiwa does enough to run forward. Just does enough. I think if he's a little bit more static, then he's on. But he's off. It's a fraction, but he's off.
Good.
If it goes to VAR, he's offside. That's
good. That's a like then. We like that. We like that.
I don't like VAR. No. I would rather not. No.
No, the lino. We like that the lino raised his flag.
But I dislike that we were put in that position to rely on that. Like he was given so much chance there, and Walton caught with treacle legs again in no man's land.
It was interesting because Matasiwa didn't slide in to stop the ball. He'd already seen the flag go up.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he would have. Perhaps the striker would have taken the ball a bit closer to the goal, but Matasiwa was back enough to make a slide to stop that ball going in where it was. But doesn't make any difference. The flag went up. It's offside.
But that is on my list of dislikes. That once again we are being done on the transitional counter attack from our own set piece. I don't. Yeah. They need to address that. Your set piece manager, set piece coach, whoever that may be, we all know who it is, but I'm not going to say the name.
Your favourite person in the world.
They need to address it because too often we are caught on our own set piece. You need to get more solid.
Yeah. It's got to be a quality ball, isn't it? It's got to be a quality ball where the defenders, where it's almost like a ball in behind, isn't it? If the ball goes in behind and you lose it, they're all facing the opposite way, so they're not going to counter you very quickly. The problem comes is when the ball isn't good enough and it's a direct. They're facing your goal and they're able to header it. It's coming in front of them, so they're able to header it away. It's not quality enough, and we had that with one of the goals the other week where we were someone said about when it was trying to knock it into Nunez in the air. That was I can't remember what game it was.
It was Jack Taylor who tried to pump it into Nunez.
Yeah. And if it would have been another 2 foot higher, it wouldn't have gone where it went. It would have gone behind for a goal kick, or gone behind, or flicked on for a corner or something like that. The fact is, those quality balls must beat the first defender. Otherwise, you are going to get countered. And we've started to counter teams as well. That's a positive.
But you do also have to look at who you're positioning where. Like, who's your 2 on the edge of the 18-yard box? Who's your 1 or 2 on the halfway line? You have to look at that. Is that the right 3 or 4 players in those positions that are, when you are counted on, are they strong in the tackle? Can they read the game? Have they got pace? All those different things that you have to play into it. Because too often, Lee, we are counted on from our own set piece, and it results in a bad situation. So you've got to look at it. Who's in what positions, and are they the right players? Even if it means you take away a threat from a set piece. It's one thing being threatening. It's another thing it being your own Achilles heel, winning a set piece.
Oh, yeah.
It can't happen. It can't happen.
No, I agree. You know, the opposition are more dangerous from our corners
than we are.
Yeah, sometimes. So that's just, I've said that loads of time. Yeah, that is really frustrating, but it's all to do with the quality of the ball.
Yeah.
If it's good, if not, you know, it's like if you're playing into feet. If you're playing into feet and you don't get it right, like the O'Shea ones, they're all when the ball is played into feet and you've got your back to goal and it's nicked off you. The transition's straightforward because you're running forward with the ball.
Yeah. Playing
the ball in the channels to turn the defence means they're not going to counter you, and I think we need to do that more.
And I think just to show how bad we were at times with our pass to feet, I don't even think Leif Davis's pass out of play hit the steward, so I don't even think he was on target that time either.
At least it went out of play and we had time to reorganise. He had all
the space in the world to do something with it, and he just passed it straight out. He was
clearing his lines, all right.
It's nonsensical.
When in doubt, knock it out. That's what, you know. 90s football, absolutely. John Smith advert. There we go. Right, we're done. Absolutely. It's been a brilliant show. Beard, Lee, thank you so much for bringing the insights, thoughts, and opinions that you have done. Thank you, wonderful people at home, whether watching live or on catch up or listening on our audio platforms. Thank you for being with us and being a part of Talking Town this afternoon. We're back live again, as I say, tomorrow with our match preview. But until then, Beard, Lee, myself, thanks ever so much. Take care. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day. You've reached the end. Thank you so much for watching. Hit here to subscribe. It's totally free. And hit here for more Talking Town videos. I'll see you on the next one.